good morning, or good afternoon, depending on when you are tuning into today's deep dive. Welcome to the Orange Ball.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We have an incredible slate of games to get into
We
today.
really do. And look, if you are just waking up, grabbing your coffee, and checking the scores from the Sunday night NBA slate, you might actually want to rub your eyes and refresh your app. Because
Okay.
what we saw in Los Angeles last night, it wasn't just a basketball game.
No, it was a total dismantling.
Exactly. It was a statement. And honestly, looking at the box score and watching the tape back this morning, it really feels like the first actual crisis moment for the league's newest, shiniest super team.
It's a math problem, a massive, basically unsolvable math problem right now. I mean, we spent all of February talking about the sheer talent accumulation in Los Angeles.
Right.
We talked about the new big three, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves. But last night, the Boston Celtics walked into Crypto.com Arena and just reminded everyone, reminded the entire league, really, that talent without geometry is just guys taking turns dribbling the air out of the basketball.
It's so true. The Celtics win this one, 111-89. And we is going to spend a lot of time on that number, 89 points.
They're staggering.
In the year of our Lord 2026, scoring 89 points in a modern NBA game is almost impossible to do unless you are actively trying to miss the rim. But look, we have a really loaded deep dive for you today. It wasn't just the Celtics flexing their muscles. We had Tyrese Maxey putting on an absolute masterclass in Minnesota.
Which, honestly, might be the more important takeaway from Sunday when you look at the long-term playoff picture. Maxey looked like he was playing at a completely different frame rate than the Timberwolves.
Like he was in fast forward.
Exactly. He was operating in fast forward while they were just stuck in mud.
We've also got the Toronto Raptors extending their win streak to 9 games, which leaves the Milwaukee Bucks in what I think we can officially classify as a crisis. And we have to talk about what's happening in Chicago, the ethical tank.
Oh, my favorite subplot of the season.
It really is. It's becoming the most fascinating thing on League Pass. But we have to start in Los Angeles. Sunday night, primetime. The Celtics, the Lakers. Now, this was the second meeting of the season for these two storied rivals. But really, it was the first time we've seen this new iteration of the Lakers against the defending champs.
Right, because the first time they played, both Luka and LeBron were out.
Yeah.
Boston won that one easily, but, it didn't really mean anything. You couldn't take anything away from it. But this game, this was supposed to be the referendum.
This was the ultimate test. And you have to set the context for where these two teams are right now. You have the Celtics, who are chasing Detroit in the East. Detroit is sitting at number 1.
Still weird to say.
It is. It takes getting used to. But Detroit is 42-13, and Boston is at 37-19, closing the gap, sitting 5.5 games back.
Yeah.
So Boston is highly motivated. And then you have the Lakers, who pushed all their chips in on that February 2nd blockbuster trade for Luka Doncic.
Pushed everything in.
And they were 8-4 when all three of those guys, Luka, LeBron, and Reeves, shared the floor coming into this matchup. So the vibe around the team was, cautious optimism. The fans thought, okay, we have the pieces to make a real run at this.
But cautious optimism was entirely the wrong read. The narrative was that the Lakers had solved their offensive creation problem by putting two of the greatest playmakers in NBA history together. But what we saw last night was the harsh reality of modern roster construction. I mean, you can have the best playmakers in the world, but if you don't have shooters around them, you're just operating in a phone booth.
Let's look at the exact numbers from last night, because the Celtics won by 22 points, but the story is the Lakers scoring just 89.
It's shocking. I had to double-check the box score when the buzzer sounded.
How does a team with Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves only score 89 points? I mean, you could roll the ball out at a local gym with those three, and they'd accidentally score 90.
It all comes down to the tactical approach that Boston took. And I promise you, every other coaching staff in the league is going to be watching this film today. Boston essentially played the percentages. We talk all the time about how this is a make-or-miss league, but this was calculated disrespect from the Celtics.
Disrespect in what sense? Break that down for the listeners who maybe didn't catch the nuances of the defensive linemen on the broadcast.
So Boston looked at the Lakers' supporting cast, the guys surrounding the big three, and they basically said, "We do not believe you can hurt us from the perimeter." They sagged entirely into the paint. Because the Lakers couldn't hit an outside shot to save their lives, the Celtics just packed the lane. They collapsed inside.
And the stats completely back that up. Let's look at the shooting disparity you flagged before we started recording, because this is where the game was decided.
This is where the game was lost before it even really got going. The Lakers shot 9 of 30 from three-point range. That's an exact 30%. Now, in isolation, 30% from three is a bad night, but it happens, right? Teams go cold, but look at what Boston did on the other end. They went 14 of 36 from deep. That's just under 39%. But the real killer metric here, the one that explains the 22-point blowout, is the effective field goal percentage.
Let's unpack that for a second. For anyone listening who isn't deep into the analytics, why is effective field goal percentage, or EFG, the number you're looking at here?
Because raw field goal percentage lies to you. It treats a simple layup and a three-pointer as the exact same value. Effective field goal percentage adjusts the math to account for the fact that a three-point shot is worth 50% more than a two-point shot. And Boston's EFG last night was 56.6%.
Which is elite.
It is highly elite offense.
Yeah.
And the Lakers, they were nowhere close to that. You simply cannot win a basketball game against this Boston scheme, which is entirely built around maximizing the math of the three-point line with that kind of mathematical gap.
And when you say Boston packed the paint, that brings us to the unsung hero of the night. Because usually when we talk about the Celtics, we were talking about their star wings. But last night, the anchor of that defense was the big man,
Neemias Queta.
And real quick, for anyone listening who wants to get that right when talking with their friends, the pronunciation is Neemias Queta.
Exactly. We have to get his name right because he was the absolute MVP of that defensive scheme.
He put up 10 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks. It's a really solid stat line.
But those raw stats don't even capture the full impact he had. Those 3 blocks were loud, sure, but it was his sheer presence. Boston's perimeter defenders were able to stay home on the shooters they actually cared about because they knew Queta was providing elite rim protection behind them. He completely shut off the restricted area.
Which meant the Lakers just looked incredibly crowded whenever they tried to initiate anything.
Claustrophobic is the word I would use. Luka had 25 points, but he had to work so incredibly hard for every single one of those buckets. LeBron finished with 20, but there was no offensive flow. It was stagnant. It looked like your turn, my turn. And when they did manage to kick the ball out to the perimeter, clank. The supporting cast gave them absolutely nothing.
Well, let's talk about that supporting cast, and specifically the bench discrepancy. Because if that shooting gap was the wound, the bench production was just pouring salt right into it.
Oh, it wasn't just salt. It was an absolute massacre of the second units.
Peyton Pritchard, 30 points. 6 of 9 from three-point range.
You really have to digest that stat. Peyton Pritchard came off the bench and outscored the entire Lakers bench by himself, significantly.
That is the kind of stat that keeps front offices awake at night.
It's devastating. And it wasn't just that he was hitting wide-open catch-and-shoot looks. He was hitting shots off the dribble. When you have a bench player hitting 6 threes and outscoring the opposing second unit by that much, you win the game. It's a wrap.
And then you have Jaylen Brown operating as the primary engine for the starting unit. 32 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. He looks so stable. But I want to pivot back to the Lakers' perspective for a minute. You mentioned this trade happened on February 2nd. They are 8-4 when the big three share the court. Is it time to panic in LA?
I wouldn't call it panic time, but it is definitely reality check time. The issue is purely roster construction. The front office gutted the team's depth to bring in Luka. They traded away their reliable shooting, and now they are relying on guys who just cannot space the floor to surround 2 of the most ball-dominant creators in the history of the sport.
And the Celtics just laid out the blueprint on national television.
That is the biggest takeaway. Boston showed every other team in the league exactly how to guard them. If you sag off the non-shooters and pack the lane, the Lakers suffocate. They don't have a counterpunch right now.
There was this really telling moment in the fourth quarter. There's about 3.5 minutes left, 3.24 on the clock. Pritchard hits this incredible step-back dagger. And the broadcast microphone picked up the crowd at Crypto.com arena.
Yeah, the scattered boos.
Right. And it wasn't even angry, vitriolic booing. It sounded like resigned booing. It was the sound of an entire fan base simultaneously realizing, oh man, we are not actually a championship contender.
That is the scariest part for the Lakers organization. If you lose a shootout, 130 to 125, you can tell yourself, okay, we just need to clean up a few defensive rotations. But when you score 89 points at home and get blown out by 22, that is a systemic failure.
Boston completely swept the season series against them. They are psychologically living in the Lakers' heads at this point.
Continuity beats star power last night. Boston knows exactly who they are. They have the reps. The Lakers are still trying to figure out their identity on the fly, and they have a massive math problem to solve. Until they fix the outside shooting, they are a second-round exit at best.
That is a harsh, but probably very accurate assessment. All right, let's move from a team that completely lost its offensive identity to a player who put his team on his back in a huge way. Segment 2, we are looking at the statement performances of the night.
And we have to start with Tyrese Maxey.
Without a doubt, the Philadelphia 76ers went into Minnesota and blew out the Timberwolves 135-108. But you have to understand the context of this game to appreciate what Maxey did.
The context is everything here.
Right. Joel Embiid misses his 5th straight game with that right shin and knee soreness. The Sixers came into this matchup riding a 4-game losing streak. Meanwhile, Minnesota had won 3 straight. On paper, this was a scheduled loss for Philadelphia.
Completely. You're on the road, your MVP candidate center is out, you're sliding in the standings, and you are facing a really tough Minnesota team. But Minnesota had their own massive personnel issues last night.
Right, the front court was completely decimated. Rudy Gobert was suspended.
And we will definitely get into the details of that suspension later in the show. But yes, Gobert is out. And Naz Reid was also unavailable.
Which forced Minnesota coach Chris Finch to start their rookie center, Joan Behringer.
And that went about as poorly as it possibly could have. Behringer picked up 3 fouls in his first 5 minutes on the floor. He just could not handle the speed. And once he was in foul trouble, Minnesota had 0 rim protection left.
And Tyrese Maxey smelled blood in the water.
He absolutely went in for the kill, 39 points, 8 assists, and he shot 16 of 28 from the field. When you remove Rudy Gobert from the paint, speed becomes the most lethal weapon on the floor. And Maxey is arguably the fastest guard in the NBA with the basketball in his hand.
He just relentlessly attacked the rim.
He did. He recognized that there was no deterrent at the basket, and he just put his head down. But the reason the Sixers scored 135 points is because the Timberwolves' defense panicked. They started collapsing on Maxey's drives, which opened up the perimeter.
The Sixers hit 21 three-pointers in this game.
21. And that brings us to the X factor of the night.
The rookie, VJ Edgecombe.
What an unbelievable performance from the kid. 24 points, and he had a career-high 6 three-pointers.
We've seen flashes of his athleticism all season, but if he's going to shoot the ball like that from the outside...
It changes their entire ceiling. Minnesota was so terrified of Maxey getting to the rim that they overhelped, and Edgecombe was just waiting in the wings. If you have Maxey breaking down the defense and Edgecombe spotting up and punishing the help defenders, that offense becomes incredibly hard to guard.
So let me challenge you on this. Is this kind of offensive explosion sustainable for Philly without Embiid? Or was this purely a product of Minnesota having absolutely no centers available to play?
It's a bit of both, honestly. You aren't going to face a team missing its top 3 rim protectors every night, but the process is sustainable. The spacing, the driving kick reads, the confidence that a guy like Edgecombe gets from seeing the ball go through the hoop 6 times from deep, that carries over.
Anthony Edwards had 28 points for Minnesota in the loss, but his quote after the game about Maxey was great.
Oh, it went viral instantly.
He said, "He's an incredible man. He already knows he's one of my favorite players." You love to see that kind of respect between the elite young guards in the league.
Game recognizes game. Edwards knows how hard it is to carry an offense like that.
Okay, let's pivot to another statement performance, but this one was the complete polar opposite stylistically. We're going from a 135-point track meet to an absolute slugfest in the Pacific Northwest. Portland defeats Phoenix 92-77.
77 points for the Suns.
It was an exceptionally ugly basketball game. Phoenix scored a season-low 77 points. Now, we know Phoenix is dealing with a ton of injuries, and we will touch on their injury report later.
Yeah.
But holding any NBA team to 77 points takes a monumental defensive effort.
And that effort was anchored by one guy, Donovan Clingan.
And just to make sure everyone has the pronunciation locked in, that's Klingn.
The Great Wall of Portland. He was a monster last night. 23 points, 13 rebounds, 4 block shots, and he was incredibly efficient on the offensive end too, shooting 9 of 13 from the field.
The Suns shot 36.9% from the floor as a team. How much of that was just them missing open shots, and how much was Clingan actively destroying their offensive game plan?
It was almost entirely Clingan dictating the terms of engagement. He completely controlled the painted area. He plays drop coverage as well as any young big in the league. Because he is so massive and so disciplined, he doesn't bite on pump fakes. Phoenix's guards would come off a screen, drive into the lane, see this giant standing there waiting for them, and they would just bail out and take a tough, contested mid-range jumper.
And they missed them. Constantly.
Exactly. Clingan essentially turned the entire paint into a no-fly zone.
We should also mention Jerami Grant, who quietly had 23 points and hit a massive dagger three-pointer to stop a late rally by the Suns. But looking at the big picture, Portland has now won 5 of their last 7 games. Are they quietly becoming a real problem for teams in the play-in race?
They are the ultimate sneaky spoiler team right now. If you were a contender on a Tuesday night in February, you do not want to play the Portland Trail Blazers. They play hard, they have length, and Klingon is altering everything at the rim. But there is a major concern coming out of this game for them.
Danny Avdija.
Yeah. And that's pronounced D-E-H-N-A, of D-A-Ya, for anyone wondering.
He re-aggravated a back injury just 1 minute into the game.
Which is brutal, because he has been such an important connector for them on both ends of the floor. Klingon is the anchor, but Avdija is the guy executing the perimeter rotations and pushing the pace in transition. If he misses significant time, I don't know if they can sustain this level of defense.
It's definitely something to monitor. Before we wrap up the statement performances, we have to do a quick shout-out to an unreal stat line that got a little buried in the late-night slate.
You are talking about LaMelo Ball.
I am. Charlotte routed Washington 129-112, and LaMelo dropped 37 points, including 10 three-pointers.
A career-high 10 threes.
Are we, as a basketball community, taking LaMelo for granted right now?
I think we probably are. Look, I know it's against the Washington Wizards, and the Wizards are 16-40 for a reason. Their perimeter defense is practically non-existent. But stepping onto an NBA floor and hitting 10 three-pointers in a single game is elite shooting, period. It doesn't matter who is guarding you.
The mechanics, the confidence to just pull up from anywhere.
He is a completely unguardable offensive engine when he gets hot like that. The problem is just that it's happening in Charlotte, and they aren't playing very meaningful games right now. But you have to respect the sheer talent.
Absolutely. All right, let's move into our final segment. Segment 3. We are looking at the controversies, the injuries, and the overall league impact from the weekend. And we have to start with my favorite topic right now, the ethical tank in Chicago.
The Bulls lost to the Knicks last night, 105-99. But the final score doesn't capture the absolute absurdity of what the Chicago front office is pulling off right now.
For the listeners who aren't familiar with the term ethical tanking, please break down what we are seeing from the Bulls.
So traditional tanking in the NBA usually involves a team deciding they want a high draft pick, so they start resting all their good players, they invent injuries. Guy has a bruised pinky toe, he's out for 3 weeks. They play their G League guys 30 minutes a night just to ensure they lose the game.
The classic race to the bottom.
Right. But the league office, specifically Adam Silver, came down hard on that recently. There is this looming Silver ultimatum regarding winning incentives and penalties for sitting healthy players. So the Bulls are basically complying with the letter of the law, but subverting the spirit of it.
They're playing their guys.
They are playing everyone. Josh Giddey is out there diving for loose balls. Matas Buzelis, and that is M-A-H, Brutes Guz Messi-Ellis. He is out there getting heavy developmental minutes. They are playing incredibly hard. They execute their sets. But somehow, miraculously, they just always end up losing by 5 or 6 points.
It is truly an art form at this point.
It's competitive losing. The front office must be thrilled because they are staying right in the mix for a top lottery pick without drawing the anger of the league office. But you have to wonder about the psychological toll it takes on the players.
Look at Josh Giddey. He had 27 points and 9 assists last night against the Knicks. He is in great form post-injury, but he looked visibly frustrated walking off the floor because athletes want to win.
Exactly. Giddey is taking these losses personally, even if the front office is secretly celebrating them.
Buzelis had 15 points, continuing to show why they drafted him. But the Knicks deserve some credit here. They were on the second night of a back-to-back, and they just found a way to win ugly. Karl Anthony Towns had 24 points and 12 rebounds. Jalen Brunson had 28.
They're a very professional basketball team. They don't play with their food.
Speaking of teams moving in completely opposite directions, let's talk about the Raptors and the Bucks. The Toronto Raptors blew out the Milwaukee Bucks in Milwaukee, 122-94.
A 28-point blowout on the Bucks' home floor.
The Raptors have now won 9 games in a row. They are an absolute wagon right now. Emmanuel quickly dropped 32 points. They are a legitimate, terrifying threat for the 4th or 5th seed in the East. But the story here is the Bucks. This is a full-blown crisis.
It is a disaster. Obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo is still out with that calf strain. The reporting indicates he has done some 3-on-3 work in practice that hasn't been cleared for 5-on-5 yet. But even without Giannis, The lack of tactical adjustment from Doc Rivers is glaring.
The defense just completely evaporated.
They gave up 38 points in the second quarter. You cannot give up a 38-point quarter at home to a division rival. The rotations were slow, the closeouts were lazy.
And the fans at Fiserv Forum were not quiet about it.
The boos were incredibly loud. Milwaukee fans know what championship basketball looks like, and they know the championship window for this core is closing rapidly. Watching a young, energetic Raptors team just run them out of their own gym has to be a rock-bottom feeling for that fan base.
Let's run through some significant injuries and disciplinary actions around the league, because the attrition rate right now is staggering. Let's circle back to Rudy Gobert.
Right, so Gobert missed that game against Philly because he was suspended due to flagrant foul accumulation.
Explain the rule on that for anyone who doesn't know.
When a player accumulates a certain number of flagrant foul points over the course of the season, it triggers an automatic one-game suspension. But the brutal part of the rule is that for every single additional flagrant foul he commits from here on out, it's an automatic 2-game suspension.
Wow. That completely changes how he has to play.
It alters the entire defensive identity of the Timberwolves. Gobert makes his living being aggressive at the rim. If he is constantly worried that a hard contest might be reviewed and upgraded to a flagrant one, he's going to have to pull back. That is a massive blow to Minnesota.
Down in Dallas, we're on Cooper flag watch. The sensational Mavericks rookie missed his 3rd straight game with a foot sprain.
Foot injuries on big rookies are always terrifying, but Coach Kidd said he had a quote-unquote good workout, so they seem to just be playing it very cautiously.
The Mavs actually managed to survive without him last night, beating the Pacers 134-130. Pascal Siakam dropped 30 points, and Chris Middleton added 25. That win officially snaps a catastrophic 10-game losing streak for Dallas.
They desperately needed that win just to stabilize the locker room.
And out in Phoenix, the injury bug is just feasting on the Suns. Devin Booker's out for at least a week with a hip injury. Dylan Brooks has a broken hand. And now Jordan Goodwin is out with a calf strain.
They are completely decimated in the backcourt. It's no wonder they only scored 77 points against Portland.
Finally, let's check the social media timelines, because there were some great viral moments last night.
Desmond Bane putting up 36 points for the Orlando Magic.
In a win over the Clippers. And the Clippers fans on Reddit are in full meltdown mode.
They are tearing the team apart over the lack of effort. When you let a guy drop 36 on you and the defensive intensity looks that poor, the fan base is going to let you hear about it.
Also an incredible milestone last night.
Right.
LeBron James played in his 1600th regular season game. He joins Robert Parrish as the only players to ever reach that number.
The longevity is just incomprehensible. He has been playing high-level basketball for longer than some guys in the league have been alive.
And one last viral visual. Pascal Siakam, after dropping 30 points on his former team in Indiana, shows up to the post-game press conference wearing an Indiana University t-shirt.
You have to love the subtle trolling, or maybe it's just genuine love for the state, but it's a hilarious image.
It really is. All right, let's wrap this up with a quick look at the big picture. Looking at the standings this morning, Detroit is still sitting at the mountaintop in the East with a 42-13 record. But Boston is at 37-19. That gap is down to 5.5 games.
And Toronto is surging right behind them. The playoff seeding in the East is going to be an absolute dogfight down the stretch.
So as we sign off, what is your final provocative thought? What is the one thing the listeners need to take away from this weekend of basketball?
For me, it is entirely about Philadelphia. Keep a very close eye on the Sixers. If Tyrese Maxey can dictate the pace like he did last night, and if VJ Edgecombe continues to shoot with that kind of elite efficiency, Joel Embiid does not need to rush his recovery. A fast, confident Sixers team that gets a fully rested Embiid right before the playoffs, that is a terrifying prospect for the rest of the Eastern Conference.
I completely agree. And my final thought goes right back to where we started the show. The Celtics didn't just win a basketball game on Sunday. They exposed the structural flaw in the Lakers' blueprint. If Los Angeles cannot find a way to space the floor and shoot the three ball, they absolutely cannot win a championship in June. You can have all the star power in the world, but if the math is working against you, you are going home early.
Math always wins in the modern NBA.
It really does. Thank you all for spending your time with us on today's Deep Dive. We will be right back here tomorrow, breaking down another full slate of games. We'll see you tomorrow on The Orange Ball.